All right, welcome back today to Relaxing Woodford. We now have this, first person point of view camera. We also have our GoPro and we've got our FS5 set up around the corner. But this is Tilly. If you haven't met her before, she is a 1948 Ford 8N. Got a 4-foot bush hog on the rear. And what we're gonna do today is we are going to begin cutting my back field. I don't know if you can see it from afar there, but it's time to cut it down. And I do it twice a year, May and August usually. And that way we get some grown back for the winter, just not as tall and as thick. I want stuff to live in there, but I don't want a forest again. And yeah, so we're gonna cut and let's see how it goes. We're gonna cut nice and slow, low gear. I'm gonna lift Tilly higher than what she's at right now. Right now, I haven't turned the hydraulics on and the PTO on. The PTO and the hydraulics and the Ford 8N are actually connected. You can't have one without the other, at least not on mine. But yeah, let's get going. All right, what do you think? So we're gonna be in, it goes second gear, get us over there, nice and slow. So we're gonna start with the easy section right here in the first in the middle. I'm gonna take this speed the whole way. I've been cutting this field since 2019. First time I actually hired a neighbor to do it. And ever since then, it's been me with Tilly. Well, we tried some other things before, but we're gonna do this. I'm gonna talk not at all and let you enjoy. You gotta turn on the PTO. I'm gonna lift up to a lot higher. Let me see how high. Let me put it in neutral real fast. I'm gonna go low in this middle portion, then I'll go higher as we tackle stuff, all right? Let's give it a go. So we're gonna go into second gear. Well, we gotta wait for that to slow down a little bit. Second gear. Go medium RPMs. And I'm done talking. Let's enjoy Relaxing Woodford. about to start tackling the portion of the yard that is markedly different. Obviously this is, you know, pretty normal, but if you could hear on the last section that began to bog down a bit, and this is very tall. It's probably about 6.5 foot tall, 7 foot tall in some sections. I'm gonna drop the first gear, raise the deck, and see how it goes. These are is absolutely one of my favorite views. I love the contrast lines. Big bug. So I turned off the gas on Tilly. This is what we've done so far. I'm gonna go get some gas for Tilly and then come back. Also, you know, she's made in 1948. What does that make her? 77 years old? Math, 77? Yeah. Carry the one. Sure. She's in her 70s. And even when she wasn't in her 70s, the Ford 8N was known for overheating. It's about 97 degrees outside right now. And whether I think I'm pushing her a lot or not, I probably am. So this is what we have so far. We'll go get some gas, let her breathe, and be right back. All right, here we are today with Tilly, and we started cutting this back field earlier. Oops. Started cutting this back field earlier today, and I stopped because it was getting very hot, and these incredible 8Ns are known to overheat, and she's done it before. It was about 96 degrees, and we were getting after it, but we're about to get back out there now. Just giving her more gas. She didn't run out. I like to be safe. But when I cut grass or mow these fields, it's pretty easy for me to really kind of reflect on gratitude and just how grateful I am for being outside, having this grass to cut. I know that's kind of silly, but it's pretty easy for a blessing to become a burden. So reflecting is pretty important. I also have my buddy Virgie out here. I'm sure you can see her right over there. That's Virgie. She's my buddy. I don't have a dog. I have a Virgie. She's I guess she's probably a three years old now. Cooney. She's a big girl. She's a good girl though. Her favorite thing is, you probably would guess her favorite thing is to eat. That's true. but she also really loves a good cuddle, which you might not guess. What do you think of these gas cans that have these smart valves on them? As you can see, I slightly modified mine. I really think I need like a jerry can scenario. I don't know if you've seen those before. If you're watching this about a 4 day in, you're probably extremely familiar with jerry cans. But this is my girl. Hi, baby. Virgie. Hi. Hi, Virg. Hi, baby. You okay? Yeah? You okay today? Oh, I love you. Yeah. I'm gonna cut grass, okay? I love you. All right. I'll leave this here. Get our camera set up. Here we go. All right, first things first with Tilly, turn on the gas, and I need to replace this solenoid, which I will before our next video. This solenoid does not link up with the proper solenoid for my starting system. It's a 12 volt converted, but not everything was kind of converted the way it should be. But so let me show you something fun. There's a solenoid that we need to change, but turn the key on, and instead of having an ignition switch that doesn't work, we're gonna pull the choke, bring up the throttle, and we're gonna get our starter, or our ignition switch. Are we ready? Go on the back, and we're gonna jump it. Gonna let the choke out. Alrighty. So, let's go cut some grass. Alright, we're gonna cut this field in first gear. Down there, you see that? First gear. And then we're gonna turn the blade on. Okay, got that. Gonna check to make sure the camera's good behind me. Yep. We're gonna cut in the sun. As the sun sets, you see that nice long shadow? Here we go. So, something I want you to be aware of and keep in mind is as we're cutting these two headlights right here, these headlights, well, there's also a bumper down there. The two headlights are really kind of telling me, you know, where to keep the center of everything. And I really try to have the outside of the headlight, if there's a line I've already cut, I try to line up there, or the outside over here. Now, to be honest, it's inside of the tires is the actual measurement to keep good for the bush hog, but I like to have a little bit less cutting path. That way I'm not trying to get too much at once. I mean, clearly already I'm cutting a lot of material. So I try to cut less width-wise to try to make up for the mass of what I'm cutting. But here we go. Welcome to Relaxing Woodford. pick. Take the outside pass, and then we'll go back in. Some of the times when I stand up, you know, the vision, you know, the level changes obviously, but when I stand up, it's so I can have better visibility. It is in here. Go back through the middle. Right here is so rich. I love it. So when I go through areas like this right here, there's actually areas in there that are bedded down. I'll try to find one to show you, where throughout the summer deer have actually laid and slept. So we definitely realize every year that this backfield becomes a really important habitat. But also, it's kind of hard, honestly. I want it to be a habitat, but I don't want it to be a forest. So I try to every year kind of do this for cycling twice a year and May and in August to really try to just continue this. Now, when we first bought this land, it's actually pretty interesting. Like, this grass wouldn't grow like this. Since we've been here, and since I've been doing this, you know, twice a year. Well, actually 1 year, I think it was last year, I only did it once. But doing it twice a year, it's really changed what's in here. It seems like there's a lot more native plants. It's pretty cool. So, let's see. Yeah, like that area right down there, that's a bedded down area where probably a deer laid and made it, you know, where it slept at night. We also had chickens. We don't now. We had chickens for I think 5 years, and then unfortunately, you know, they harvested some of the tree forests around here, or tree farms, for paper. And in that, you know, kind of like what I'm doing now, so it's a little bit hypocritical, but they took away the habitat of the coyotes and the foxes and stuff. And what happened was, you know, that following year and every year since, we've had a lot of foxes. Foxes are great, except when they find your chicken coop, and you know, they're really hard to hunt, really hard to find, and we ended up losing almost all of our chickens and had to make the hard decision of, okay, well, we don't, you know, it's either we give our chickens away to someone who has a pretty good scenario going right now and can keep the chickens safe, or all the chickens die anyways, you know. So I'm gonna cut this little area right here. So we gave the chickens away to our buddy, and just kind of, you know, hoping that they live longer there, you know. I'm gonna do a cut through right here, loop back around. Hope you can forgive me for breaking a pattern. So when I first started cutting this back field, I would cut it into 4 pieces, and then just tackle it a quarter at a time, you know, over a week or a couple weekends. And I would do it when it's cold outside. But something else about this tractor is, like, the front is where the radiator is, which is common, but the way that it breathes, it just sucks in. When I cut it, when everything's dry, it just sucks in all, like, the wheat, or like the shaft from the grasses, and basically, like, I gotta keep cleaning it out all day long. So I've learned when I cut it when it's a little bit more wet, I can cut more. It's hotter outside, but I can cut more grass. All right, so this is gonna be really thick to cut through, as you can tell, but we're gonna do it. It's really freaking tall. Hey, if you made it this far in the video, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? I made this channel because I gotta cut my grass, take care of my land, etc. And I figured, because I've been told by a lot of friends that they love watching when I do this stuff, so I, you know, figured maybe you would too. And honestly, you watching and subscribing helps me take care of Tilly and keep her around longer. Much bigger base than I anticipated. not really a tractor connoisseur. I don't really know a lot about tractors or old tractors. Definitely not a mechanic. Look at this, how beautiful this is. Look at that. That's my ADD for you, but I don't really know a lot. And this is how I mow. So if you're watching this and you're really frustrated right now because I'm not doing it right, just let me know. Let me know what I should be doing differently. Property a long time ago that pretty much all the locals know who owned it by. Apparently this field I'm cutting right now, which is mine, it's part of my property. At one point it was a cedar forest, and apparently this old man who was a prisoner of war, I think in Vietnam, he came out here, hand sharpened his axe every day, and by hand cut down every single cedar tree. So sometimes when I go around the property now with like a regular lawnmower and I'm close to this back field, unfortunately I find the stumps of the old cedar trees. And I say unfortunately because you find one of those with a riding mower, you feel like you just got into a head-on collision as your deck glides across and catches it. You basically almost go over your wheel. It's pretty crazy. But also, something that reminds me of that is when I'm cutting this field, every once in a while I'll see some cedar trees that are trying to come back. You know, I've thought about letting some of them grow. I've thought about seeing what would it be like to have, you know, a cedar forest back here. But there's two things I remember. One, well, there was one here, and for whatever reason, Mr. B decided there shouldn't be. So with that, you know, I'm gonna guess that Mr. B was a lot smarter than me. You know, I feel like it's a pretty safe guess. Number two for consideration is simply that if I grow that forest again and then change my mind, well, I really don't feel like being the old man sharpening his axe and going out to cut down trees every day. So I thought I'd honor Mr. B and just keep the forest cut. There's that laid down spot where the deers were I was telling you about. Here's one of those. This is a pine tree, not a cedar, but trying to come back. Last year I said, yeah, I'll let it come back. Nope, changed my mind. What's crazy too is they can really get about 4 or 5 foot tall in a year if you let them. I'm gonna upload this version of the video with my commentary, and I'll put a version without. That way, just in case you hate me, you don't have to hear me. It's really, really thick and tall right here. Look at that, man. Oh my God. Oh, there's Cedar. Goodbye, Mr. Cedar. Some of these areas, man, I just can't even believe how thick they are. looks so good. I mean, relatively, obviously, we're talking about cutting down stuff, so if you feel like it should look like this, let me know in the comments. And then for those of you who think that it should look like this, let me know in the comments too. Part of me thinks I can't wait for the day till my kids can do this. And the other part is like, I really don't ever want to give this up. This is fun. I wish I could get my wife to do it. She would love this. But Tilly is fairly scary for some people in operation. I mean, as you can tell though, I'm doing nothing. I'm just steering Tilly, and then I actually have a clutch down there that down here on my foot. Let's see that? That's the clutch. So I can push that in and basically it disengages the transmission and just completely, you know, stops the unit from moving. It also stops the blade, which is great, until you lift your foot back up, and then everything re-engages unless you put it in neutral and turn off the PTO. But honestly, at this point, I would let anybody cut my grass. Time, but it can become a lot to handle. We have about 14 acres. And out of the 14, I've kind of estimated that about half and half are woods and field. Field including like the area around the house. Woo! Those are big grasshoppers. They get to be about like that big around here. At that size, the same pinchers that eat bugs and stuff, they don't feel good. They hurt when they bite. This stuff is crazy. Sometimes driving through this is scary for me because there's some like blue wasps that are all on the top that are also pollinators. Look at the stick bug. Oh, praying mantis, I'm sorry. Our sun's starting to get nice and low. I love it. This is goldenrod out here. Goldenrod. That's where we get the name goldenrod yellow from, right? To have a lot of Queen Anne's lace in here, and we don't anymore, really. This really tall stuff is taking it all over. It's one of the cedars. Spots where we start to close in the divide. You can see on the rear camera now that I'm completely eliminating a whole row. Look at that. get to do now is clean up that last little bit down there. And go back over some of these tough spots. I'm gonna go clean that up down there. And basically how areas like this happen, yeah, I'm going in stripes, but when I take on one of those middle sections and I'm trying to go straight and the wheel gets yanked one way or something like that, that's how we get to this drift area. Because that's what this is right here, this first one, that's just a drift. That was where I first plunged this area. So I'm gonna hug that left side of the bumper on the grass, right? And redefine how much of a cut I can make on this. See that? Left side of the bumper. I need to make 2 more passes on this section. It's pretty crazy though, right? Thinking about how you can enter one side of the field, think you're going straight the entire time. And then in that short distance, you can be 3 tractor widths completely off from where you're going. Reminds me a little bit about what I do in my day job when I help companies with like mission drift, which means like you set out on a mission and you don't really have a clear path or no one's really guiding you on making sure you're going the right way. And all of a sudden, you're a few weeks or months down the road and you're far off from where you intended to set out to go. Need a big one. Woo. Yeah. Watch that back shot. Bing bong. Just had a bee hit me in the face, yo. No thanks. Ouch. Well, that was not very fun. If I do say so, that was not very fun. All right, let's try it again. That was pass 2. Watching this, I really appreciate it. How about this corn? Pretty cool, right? You know, living in this environment, it's pretty easy to forget that a lot of people that never see this. This corn behind me in this field, this is what they call feed corn, F-E-E-D. And what that looks like, farmers, you can come at me if I'm wrong, but what that usually looks like is, you know, when feed corn is on the stalk, you let it be there so long that it actually dries out a little bit on the stalk. When you pull feed corn, it's got a lower humidity point. It's more dried out and ready to be converted, you know, pulled off the stalk and put directly into the process of feeding livestock. It's livestock feed corn. And a difference there is other corn that's like fields like would be behind my home, it would be gone already if it was for human consumption. If it was, you know, ripe enough. But this whole field here won't be harvested until it's fully brown, and then even more than that, they have to make sure that the moisture level, the moisture content is below a certain threshold. It's pretty interesting when you start looking into where your food comes from, because sometimes what you eat and what the cow eats are a completely different process. It's kind of like how the cow you eat, the cow you wear, and the cow you drink milk from are not the same cow. You typically don't get leather from a meat cow, and you typically don't get dairy from a meat cow either. This way so you can see that nice little sunset. Inchworm on my arm. Mowing. We're gonna try to knock this swath out and maybe see our buddy Donk in the meantime. Don't worry, you'll know exactly who it is. Let's try this in first gear because I am honestly afraid. So we have our clutch down, we just engaged our PTO, we're cutting in first gear. We're at a little bit above halfway on our throttle. We're gonna get it, let's go. There's our buddy Donk. I see him. Another deer spot. Bunch of bees or something on top of that last bush I just hit. take this edge here. I will not be surprised if mice start running out. Look how thick it is in there though. I'm gonna cut that all down. Bunny rabbit all the way up there. Watch out, bunny baby. The depth of the camera, so we'll cut to the other angle over there. Hello, other angle, and then we're gonna wing it. Here we go, baby. Here we go, baby. How satisfying is that? Like a reverse mohawk. They're really, woo boy. So, she's thick. Honor your OCD if you got it, but check this bad boy out. It's a wall of oh no. Like, oh no, what's in there, baby? thin this thing out now. I don't know what these tall plants are, but they smell like heaven. Talk about being satisfied. Please be satisfying. Please be satisfying. Grab the corner. Can we do it? Can she do it? Can she do it? Be satisfying, Tilly. Heck yeah. Grab this edge. Not gonna be able to do a oneer. I'm gonna grab this left though for you. Grab this righty. See that bar? I'd be lying if I said 6 feet from the edge, or that whatever that Creed song is called. Isn't playing in my head right now. Okay, here we go. Straight center, straight center. All right, we might satisfy on this one, y'all. Let's see. Boom, boom. Can we satisfy? Can we satisfy? Can we satisfy? Sometimes when you cut really thick stuff, you know, you don't really get everything. Sometimes you gotta love tap it some more. So the way that a bush hog works, if you don't know, and why this is even possible, is two big reasons. One, instead of us having, you know, 3 independent blades running like on a finish mower, or like a mower that goes underneath of a lawnmower deck, this has one large disc. Mine has one large disc. The bigger ones have multiple, but I have one large disc, almost like this wheel, and on that disc, like here and here, are 2 smaller discs that actually have a blade hooked to each of them, and so that disc is always moving. And those blades can move independently, which means that instead of them hitting something and getting stuck, when that disc runs like that and this blade hits something, it just spins and like gives up to where it doesn't ever get bogged down. It just hogs that thing on out. And so what also is true is, instead of having, for me at least, instead of having really awesome cutting blades, it pretty much just beats things into submission. So, you know, none of this is sexy cut, but I bet you, well, I'll tell you one thing, it's way better than not cut. So that's number one. That's how, like, the function is. I'm gonna cut this area real quick. Number two, how it works differently than like a normal mower or whatever, is I am not relying on a belt. As you can see on my rear camera right now, I'm relying literally on my PTO shaft to go directly into a gearbox that's directly connected to that disc. And so, you know, if something breaks, it's gonna be something serious and not a belt. Like I'm not gonna be able to just fix it probably. Well, I'm gonna tell you, all of this that you see beside me and all of this you see in front of me, we're gonna come back and we're gonna do that. And I'll make one big video with everything, and I'll put this video out also by itself. But until next time, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for other releases from Relaxing Woodford.